Okay, so I hesitated to do this video because I feel like as soon as I do it, something's going to blow up somewhere and there'll be like it'll be stale. I scoured the news all day today. I spent a lot of time looking at the news, like waiting for something that has exploded somewhere or something that has drones attacked or this or that, whatever it was. It's been really quiet. It's been like eerily quiet. And I think I understand why it might be, and I'll talk about that near the end. But first, I want to talk about this phone call where Trump calls Zelensky and yeah, I mean, like that was the way it was. Trump calling Zelensky, and Zelensky and Trump both put out posts, and Zalinsky's response here was masterful. Now, I don't know what they talked about other than what they said, but let's get to this. So Zelensky and Trump discuss a ceasefire, pressure on Russia in a phone call. President Zelensky had a constructive call with U.S. President Donald Trump on May 8th, discussing pressure on Russia and a potential ceasefire. So Medusa covered this and said in a post on X, Zelensky described it as a good conversation. And in turn, Trump wrote on Truth Social that the U.S. talks with Russia and Ukraine are ongoing. He then called for a 30-day ceasefire as well. Okay, and we know that Zelensky has been for 50 some odd days talking about, hey, I'm willing to have this ceasefire. And Putin was trying to blame Zelensky for being a warmonger today because he's not honoring the ceasefire, the unilateral ceasefire that Ukraine never agreed to, and Ukraine was asking for a 30-day ceasefire, and Russia wouldn't agree to it. Okay, so here we are. Donald Trump's Truth post. Talks with Russia and Ukraine continue. Okay, the U.S. calls for ideally a 30-day unconditional ceasefire. Of course, again, Ukraine has agreed to this already 50 days ago. Hopefully, an acceptable ceasefire will be observed, and both countries will be held accountable for respecting the sanctity of these direct negotiations. Now, that's not happening tomorrow, and Trump continues to just talk about like they're not doing it and they're not doing it, and neither side's really doing it, but Ukraine's trying to do it. If the ceasefire is not respected, the U.S. and its partners will impose further sanctions. Okay. They've put sanctions on the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians then came off the sanctions, but there is never anything that was done to the Russians yet. Thousands of young soldiers are dying on a weekly basis, and everybody should want it to stop. I do, and the United States of America does also. As president, I will stay committed to securing peace between Russia and Ukraine together with the Europeans. That's interesting language that he added, together with the Europeans, and a lasting peace it will be. And I'd like to hear that it's a lasting peace, but it's got to be a just peace to be a lasting peace. This ceasefire must ultimately build towards a peace agreement. It can all be done very quickly, and I'll be available at a moment's notice if my services are needed. If my services are needed? That was kind of odd. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Okay, well, there's really not a lot on Trump's end that's new or interesting or useful, but on Zelensky's end, it was really interesting. So let's look at Zelensky's. This is Office of the President of Ukraine. You can just Google that and you'll come right to this. Ceasefire, lasting and reliable, will be a real indicator of moment toward peace. America can help with this. This is the address by the president. Okay, so Zelensky says, I've just spoken with President Trump. It was a good conversation, very warm and constructive. We congratulated each other on our nations on Victory Day in World War II. 80 years since the victory over Nazism, the victory in Europe achieved together by all nations that defeated Nazism. Okay, so again, May 8th is a traditional day of recognizing victory in Europe. Now, I was reading the comments, and somebody in an earlier video, I said May 9th, there's a time zone issue, but there's also, and they've rightly pointed this out, so I'm correcting myself, it was also that the Germans wanted to surrender to the Americans if they could, because they knew they'd be treated better than surrendering to the Russians. And so they waited longer to surrender to the Russians on May 9th. That's partly true, and it's partly time zone. So both things are happening simultaneously. So I'm just adding that to the picture. Okay, we spoke with the president about joint actions, the support of the United States, so that is so urgently needed, and pressure on Russia, pressure for the sake of peace. They do need pressure on Russia. Where is the pressure on Russia? See, this is the whole thing. Like, they're both equally not doing it, and there's no pressure on Russia, although there could be pressure on Ukraine if they weren't saying, yes, we want a deal. So that pressure has to come. We discussed the situation on the front lines. We discussed diplomatic efforts. We talked about how to bring closer a real and lasting ceasefire for at least 30 days. Zalinsky singing off the very same song sheet about the 30-day thing, and Putin just does not want to go down that path. He said Ukraine is ready for a full ceasefire starting right now, from this very moment, a 30-day silence. So even though it was supposed to be the 7th to kind of pants Putin that he wasn't actually going to do it, he says even now, he's willing to do a 30-day from this moment. Okay, so it is May 8th. Actually, right now, as I'm speaking, it's May 9th in Russia. And he would still do a 30-day from right now if Putin was willing to honor it. But Putin can't honor it. He doesn't want to honor it. He just wants the PR pose of, look, I tried to do this, and those Ukrainians, they wouldn't do it. He doesn't want anything to hamper his parade, but he doesn't want to actually do it. It must be real. No missile or drone strikes. No hundreds of assaults on the front. The Russians must respond appropriately by supporting the ceasefire. They must prove their willingness to end the war. This isn't the first time. We are offering this once again. So Zelensky saying, look, I've said it for 50 days. I offered it the other day. I'm offering it today. 30 days that could become the beginning of years of peace. A ceasefire, lasting and reliable, will be a real indicator of movement toward peace. Of course, we spoke today about our agreement, the economic partnership agreement with America. They're talking about the minerals deal. It was signed into Verkhonovna unanimously with like 9 abstentions. I instructed the team to work quickly on establishing a joint Ukraine-United States investment fund. We also agreed with President Trump on our further contacts. So everything's going swimmingly along those lines. He said today, overall, very active day. I spoke with Germany, new Chancellor Friedrich Merz. I also spoke with President of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen. We must continue to defend Ukraine and our united Europe together. That's exactly what we're doing. So he said, overall today, very active day, but it seems so eerily quiet, like something's about to happen, and like I'm waiting for it. I'm scrolling the news. I spent more time on news today than like most days, and that's saying something, right? Okay, here's an image of Moscow right now. Like there's nothing on the streets. Like if you like, I saw a scooter, but that was like it. Like it is cleaned out. Here's a police car patrolling, making sure there's nothing there, because they're cleaning house to make sure that there's nothing that could be like, you know, car on the side of the road with a bomb or something along those lines. And then more than half the population of Russia will be without internet tomorrow as a precaution to protect Putin's May 9th propaganda parade, according to Jay in Kyiv. Mobile internet will be disconnected tomorrow in the entire European part of Russia. Well, what does that mean? Okay, so I'll show you that in just a moment. Chaos is expected in Moscow on May 9th. Reports say communication will be shut down from 9 to 1300 for the parade. No internet, no calls, no SMS will work during that time. Full digital vacuum. Why? Because drones would need to use to ping the tower. So if everything's shut off, it makes it harder for drones to actually be able to operate. And so that's part of it. Okay, so here's Russia. You know what Russia looks like. This is the part of Russia that is European Russia. So this is a huge chunk of what Russia. So we're going to see an experiment for the first time in history of the internet just that had been like people had been relying on daily, just being turned off for a couple of days or for a day and a half, something like that. And we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting to see at least. All right, Darth Putin, I'll leave you with this. It will be called the Internet. Okay, no, it's not going to be on. Yeah, interesting play on words. So that's what we have today. And like, even as I'm recording this, and the very first thing I'm going to do is turn it, as soon as I'm done with this, is turn on to see, has something happened? Okay. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.